What's up, everybody? David Yang here again with Home Sellers. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk, where I talk about real estate. In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic, which is rent control. Now, before we get started, if you could do me a big favor by smashing that thumbs up button, that really helps me out. Also, I want to hear your thoughts on rent control. Are you for it? Are you against it? Leave a comment below. So what is rent control? Simply put, rent control is where the government puts a cap on how much rents can be charged or increased in a certain period of time and in a certain area. So take, for example, St. Paul just recently passed their rent control measures back in November of last year, which was one of the most stringent rent control measures in the nation, okay? Generally, what they're saying is they want to cap rents at 3%. So if you're a renter, this is very good for you because it makes your rents very predictable. And if inflation goes up, you know that your rents are going to be capped at 3. So if inflation goes up to 10%, which, you know, it's not there yet, but it's been pretty close, then you know that your prices, your rental prices are only going to increase by 3% per year. So that's very, very good for renters. It makes it very predictable. Now, what are the cons? Well, some of the cons are it puts a strain on the current supply of rentals available. And what I mean by that is even before the pandemic hit, we had a supply issue of rental properties. There wasn't enough rental properties. That's the reason why rent prices have been increasing every year very, very quickly. So in economics, the way to generally lower prices is to increase supply and decrease demand, which we have not been seeing that. We've been seeing demand increase and supply decreasing, especially since the last recession. There hasn't been enough properties being built, whether single families or rental. And how rent control comes in and affects that is that essentially it puts a cap to rental prices, which then squeezes the landlords and new developers, all right? So when St. Paul enacted passed their rent control, we heard that, a lot of developers are pausing their construction projects. Well, why would they do that, right? Well, one of the reasons is because they expect to be able to charge higher rents to recover some of those initial construction costs. That's what makes them want to invest in St. Paul, okay? But right now in the investor community and even, in the lending community, we're starting to see that a lot of investors are trying to stay away from St. Paul because of rent control, because of how stringent it is. And how that affects our current supply is we're not building any new properties. We're not bringing landlords into our market, okay? We're not bringing any more supply into market. In fact, what I've been seeing is a lot of landlords and investors exiting the St. Paul market. We're starting to see a lot more investment properties that are being put up for sale. And who are gonna buy those properties? I don't think landlords would be buying those properties because if they do a very big capital investment in that property, they might not recoup it through rents, okay? They might not recoup their losses through the rents. So the main people that are generally gonna buy those properties is, say, example, if it's a single family home, it's probably gonna end up being a owner-occupied person that buys that property, okay? Which is not bad, but for the rental market, what it does is it just removes some properties from the small pool of rentals that we currently have. So what I want you to understand is that to increase the amount of rentals, we need more landlords, all right? And I'm not saying that because I'm a landlord too. I'm saying that because that is the way that we're going to decrease prices. Another con is sometimes rent control policies can indirectly force landlords to increase rents every single year. So some measures, like the one that was recently passed in St. Paul, even if a renter moves out, the landlord cannot bring the rents up to market rents, okay? They can only increase it by 3% of what it was last year. So what that's doing is a lot of landlords are increasing their rents. They might be under rents right now, but they're increasing their rents to market rent, so that way they don't have to play catch up, or they won't ever be able to catch up once it goes into effect. So what are my thoughts on rent control? Personally, I think that we're going to start seeing more rent control measures being implemented across the country as we generally become a renter nation, okay? Now, is that good for us? I don't know, okay? What I do know is that personally, I believe for us to combat rising rent prices, we should increase the supply. So we should make it easier for developers to come in, develop, and recoup their losses. And we should incentivize landlords to come in and become landlords, or get new people to become landlords, okay? First-time landlord programs that help landlords purchase properties or make it easier for them to get rental licenses. What that's gonna do is that's gonna help increase the supply, which is what we badly need right now. So what you can do as either a tenant or a landlord is start learning and researching what rent control is, okay? Talk to your local politicians. See how it's going to affect your community, okay? Because ultimately, in the end, it's going to take everybody, landlord, tenants, politicians, it's going to take all of us to be able to tackle the issue of high rental prices. Now, that was just some quick information on what rent control is. If you have any more questions regarding it, please leave them in the comments section below. If not, I will see you guys next week on the next episode of Real Talk.